The story of St. Francis of Assisi. Once upon a time, in a small town in Italy called Assisi, there was a young man named Francis. Now, Francis wasn't a saint right away. No, he started out just like any of us. Actually, he loved parties, fine clothes, and living the good life. He was the son of a wealthy merchant, so he had the money to enjoy it. Life for Francis was fun and carefree. But something was missing. He didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. One day, Francis went off to war. He dreamed of being a great knight, famous, heroic, and admired. But instead of glory, he found himself captured and thrown into a dark, cold prison. It was a year before his father could pay the ransom to bring him home. While he was locked away, something started stirring deep inside him. It was like a tiny whisper in his heart. When he finally came back to Assisi, he wasn't the same. He felt different. Francis began to see the world with new eyes. Instead of riches and glory, he started noticing the poor, the sick, and the suffering. He felt a strange sadness, but also a pull to help them. One day, Francis went walking in the countryside. He came across an old, broken-down church, San Damiano. Inside, he saw a simple crucifix of Jesus on the cross. As he stood there, silent and unsure, he heard something, a voice. It was soft but clear. "Francis, repair my church, for it has fallen into ruin." Francis was stunned. Repair the church? Was he imagining this? But he felt something so powerful, so true, that he couldn't ignore it. He took the words literally at first. He sold some of his father's cloth. Remember, his dad was a merchant, to buy supplies for the broken church. When his father found out, he was furious. He dragged Francis to the town square, demanding that Francis return the money and stop embarrassing the family. But Francis had made up his mind. In front of everyone, he gave back the money and even the clothes on his back, saying, "I have no father but God." From that moment on, Francis gave up everything. He chose to live in complete poverty. No money, no fancy clothes, no possessions at all. People thought he was crazy. "Why would anyone give up all of that?" they whispered. But Francis didn't care. He had found what he was looking for. Francis spent his days helping the poor, feeding the hungry, and caring for the sick. He saw beauty in the smallest things: flowers, birds, even the sun and the moon. He called them his brothers and sisters. To Francis, all of creation was a gift from God. Once, he saw a man with leprosy, a terrible disease that made people outcasts, abandoned and feared. Francis was terrified, but he walked up to the man, held his hands, and kissed him. At that moment, Francis felt his fear leave him. He realized that loving others, no matter who they are, is how we love God. Soon, others started following Francis. They were inspired by his kindness, his joy, and his deep love for God and people. They called themselves brothers and lived simply, sharing everything they had. One day, while walking through the countryside, Francis noticed a huge flock of birds. Instead of ignoring them, he stopped and said, "My sisters, the birds, listen to me." The birds didn't fly away. In fact, they all sat still, as if they were listening to every word. Francis spoke to them about God's love, that God had given them wings to fly and food to eat. "Be thankful for all that you have," he told them. It was a simple moment, but it captured who Francis was. Someone who saw God's love in everything. Francis' way of life began to spread across the land. He inspired others to live with kindness, humility, and gratitude. Even as his health grew weak, his heart remained strong. Toward the end of his life, he wrote a beautiful song called the Canticle of the Sun, praising God for Brother Sun, Sister Moon, and all of creation. When Francis died at just 44 years old, people already knew he was someone special. Not because he was rich or powerful or famous, but because he was loving, humble, and full of joy. So, what can we learn from St. Francis of Assisi? Maybe it's that the most meaningful life isn't about how much we have, but how much we give. It's about finding beauty in the little things and showing love to everyone, whether it's a stranger on the street or a small bird in the sky. Francis showed us that even one person with faith and kindness can make the world a brighter place. And maybe, just maybe, that's a lesson we can all carry with us today.